I can't do that, Zach, so I'm good. Oh, you got one? Yep. Oh, y'all know?
Oh, it is. There's a seat over here.
Zimmerman here. He came and spoke to FCA this morning, and now he's here to speak to you guys about leadership. Let me tell you just a little bit about Ty Zimmerman. He played for K-State. He was a football player from 2010 to 2013. He was a four-time All-Conference and three-time All-American selection during that time. And he is now the area director of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he serves coaches and athletes in North Central Kansas. He is married and he has 2 children, and we're just so fortunate that he can come here and talk with you guys this morning. Thank you guys for all spending your advisory time here and listening to Todd. Thank you, Todd.
Can you guys hear my voice? Is it carrying loud enough? Yeah, we're good? Good. All right, I'm going to walk around because I'm a hand talker. I like to interact, so I'm going to walk around. I'm going to speak as loud as I can. All right? Thank you for coming. Turn to your neighbor, say good morning. Good morning. Turn to the other neighbor, say, man, I'm glad you're here. All right, raise your hands. Raise your hands. How many of you are like super interested in leadership? Okay. Raise your hands if you're here just to get out of class, be honest. Yeah. Hey, I can relate. I was in both groups of people when I was in high school, but hopefully, man, I can give you something beneficial to take with you, to put in your back pocket that will help you in your journey, not just here at Valley Center, but man, as you enter into adulthood. All right, because leadership, man, is a topic that I'm super passionate about. Because, man, as I reflect on my life, I've had a lot of good examples of leaders, and I've had some bad examples of leaders that I've learned a lot from. Right? How many of you, if you could be honest, raise your hand. As you reflect on your life, how many of you have had a leader at some point in your life, whether it was a boss, a family member, a coach, a teacher, that left a sour taste in your mouth? Probably all of us, right? If we're honest. And I think, man, if we did some deeper self-reflection, if we're honest, I think we can say, man, at a certain point in our life, maybe we haven't always been the best leader ourselves. Maybe we haven't always impacted people in a positive way, right? And just so we're clear, you may be in that group of people that thinks, man, this is irrelevant to me because I'm not in the position of a leader. I want to challenge you on that, okay? I want to challenge you on that this morning. It is my conviction that every single person in this room, at the very least, has the capacity to lead, because I would say leadership is simply influence. You guys follow me there? Leadership is simply influence. And by that definition, every single person in this room has the capacity to lead, because every single person in this room has influence over other people. Whether you realize it or not, there are people in your life right now that are being impacted by you. Right? From the very, very obvious one of, the superintendent who I just met that runs this whole district, down to the principal, down to the teachers, down to the admin, right? But all the way down to, the least popular kid in this school, every single person has the capacity to lead, because every single person has influence, right? And so the question you need to ask yourself this morning is a big one. It's not an if question, but a what question. Not if you have the capacity to lead, not if you have influence over other people, but what kind of leader are you? Right? What kind of influence are you leaving for those that are around you? Whether you have influence over a big group of people on an athletic team, you're a captain maybe, right? Or all the way down to you just have one little brother or sister at home as your influence. What kind of impact are you leaving? Are you the type of person that brings joy and life to other people? Or are you the one that we talked about just a little bit ago that leaves a sour taste in the mouth of those under your influence? Again, leadership is influence. How are you influencing other people? I think the good news this morning is that if you can reflect on your life and say, I'm failing at this area, that can change today. That's a decision you can make to change that today. And even if you are doing well in this area, we can always grow, right? This topic, I think, holds relevance to every single person in this room. For me personally, why I'm so passionate about this, I'm constantly checking my heart on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, to make sure I'm in a good position to lead others around me. First and foremost, I'm a follower of Jesus. And so I seek to serve other people in that role, right? I'm a husband and a father. I got a wife and 2 kids at home. And so with that comes a lot of responsibility, a lot of influence, right? I'm a coach. I coach football. I get to influence young men on a daily basis. I have a job where staff report to me on a weekly basis. So, I have a lot of influence and responsibility. I'm constantly checking my heart to see, am I in a healthy spot to lead other people? All right, you guys follow me? So let me just share a few things this morning, kind of kick off your Wednesday, that I think will be helpful to you if you're saying, I want to grow in this idea of impacting other people. Things that I've learned from bad leaders, things I've learned from good leaders, things that I've learned just from failing on my own. All right, 3 things. I think good leaders learn to first lead themselves. Everybody say lead themselves. Lead themselves. Good leaders learn to embrace vulnerability. Everybody say embrace vulnerability.
Embrace vulnerability.
Good leaders define their why. Everybody say define their why.
Define their why.
Attaboy. Nice and loud. I love it. All right? Good leaders first learn to lead themselves. I think oftentimes when we talk about leadership, we tend to get very outward focused, right? We tend to go straight to strategies and skills that are needed to lead other people. And don't get me wrong, those things are necessary, right? Or we can just tend to focus on position. Bosses and teachers and coaches are automatically leaders because that's their position, right? Starters and seniors and captains on the softball team or on the cheer squad are automatically leaders because that's their position. So we think somebody's position is what qualifies them as a leader, right? But listen, good leadership, the kind that leaves a lasting influence, a lasting impact on the people in your sphere of influence, is not about a position or a skill. It's about living an authentic life that other people can naturally follow, right? It is not the position of the person, it's the condition of your character, right? Let me say it one more time. It's not the position of the person, it's the condition of their character. Too often, someone will find themselves in a position of leadership who has not first learned to lead themselves, and the result is that those under their influence are impacted in a negative way, right? Just turn on your social media feed, right? Turn on the news feed every single day, story after story. If a person in a position of leadership that's caught up in scandal or caught up in a moral failure, right? And the impact on the people under their influence is devastating, right? If you want to lead and influence people well, do a heart check. Do some self-reflection. Ask yourself, am I living an authentic life? Meaning, is what I'm saying and how I'm living matching up? Is it matching up? Right? Am I walking the walk, so to speak, so that what I'm saying and how I'm living is matching up? I can think of, man, a couple different teammates of mine that really highlight this glaring contrast during my time at K-State. All right? I can think of a teammate of mine who I'll not name that was known as kind of the rah-rah guy. Anybody know what the rah-rah guy is? Anybody know what I mean when I say that?
Nope.
Right? He was a guy that wanted to be out in front of the cameras. He was the one that wanted to break down the huddles, to give team speeches, right? He was the guy that, man, he would jump on top of a pile at the end of the play, get up and beat his chest in front of the crowd. It's like, bro, you didn't even do anything. What are you doing, right? But here's the deal. Most of us could see through the fluff, right? Most of us saw what he did off the field. We saw how what he said and what he did didn't match up, and there was a disconnect between his words and his actions, and therefore his words didn't really mean much. Right? He was focused on the position of being a leader and wanted to be a leader. His heart was right. His intentions were good. But he did not first develop the character that would sustain that. You guys follow me?
Yeah.
Right? And then I had another teammate on the opposite side. His name was Tyler Lockett. Anybody know who Tyler Lockett is? Yeah. Plays for the Seattle Seahawks. Right? Tyler was a guy that focused on the condition of his character. We saw that right off the bat as he came in as a freshman. Put in extra time after work. Right? We had class checkers every day for guys who couldn't get to class on time. Tyler didn't need a class checker. Right? He recognized that the Tyler in class and the Tyler at home and the Tyler on the weekends couldn't be disconnected from the Tyler on the field. Right? Couldn't be disconnected from the Tyler on the field. He recognized that your character is not something that you can turn off and on when you need it. Right? How you do anything is how you end up doing everything. Your habits matter. And he recognized that. And guys naturally followed him, right? Because his actions lined up with his words. And even though he didn't say a lot, he didn't have to, right? He didn't have to. Those few words held weight because we saw how he approached his life. Man, a true leader is one who leads himself or herself first. And because they are themselves headed toward a certain destination, they are now able to take others along with them. Right? It's really the difference between a travel agent and a tour guide. Right? Anybody been on a vacation recently? Yeah? So when you go on a vacation, sometimes you can book a travel agent. You've got a lot of money. A travel agent sits behind a desk. Right? A travel agent maybe has not been to the Bahamas or to Italy, wherever you're going, but they know how to get you the best deal. What does a tour guide do, though?
Shows you around.
Tour guide's going to show you around. He's going to take you to a certain destination because they've been there. They've been there, done that. They can show you the ins and outs, the places to avoid. I remember my freshman year, we played a bowl game up in New York City. I'm a Kansas kid. I've never been to New York City, right? I can read about it on Google. I can hear about it from somebody who's visited there. But one of the first things we did when we got there, we had a team meeting. A local police officer came in. He's from New York. He told us everywhere to go, the places to eat, the alleys to avoid. And I can trust that guy because he's been there. He's done that, right? His words carry weight. He's living it. Right? Good leaders, good influencers are the tour guides. Right? Because they know the way, and because they go the way, they're now able to turn and show other people the way. Make sense? So good leaders first learn to lead themselves. Secondly, good leaders learn to embrace vulnerability. Ever say embrace vulnerability?
Embrace vulnerability.
Now, if you look up the Webster's definition for vulnerable, it says, word for word, capable of being physically or emotionally attacked. Right? And you may think to yourself, why in the world would being vulnerable have to deal with leadership? Right? But here's what I mean. I mean vulnerable in the sense that I learned to be open and honest with the people in my influence about my struggles and my failures and my pain and my weaknesses. I learned to open myself up emotionally to those that are around me. And don't get me wrong, that is hard. Okay, that is scary, and most people do not do it and will not do it. And I think if you will not be vulnerable, your impact on other people will be little. Right? I think, man, if you learn to embrace vulnerability, your impact, your influence on other people will drastically increase. Right? And I get it. It sounds crazy, especially in our social media culture that we live in. We live in a culture where, if we're honest, most people post the best, most cleaned up version of themselves online, right? Most people, I think, in our generation have very surface level relationships, right? We like to portray to other people that we have it all figured out, right? You know, you're in America, when you pass by somebody and the conversation goes something like this, "Hey, how you doing?" What do they say? "I'm doing great. How are you?" "I'm doing good." And we just go about our day, right? And I know I'm struggling with something. I know they're struggling with something. They know I'm struggling, but for some reason, it's hard for us to open up. There's something that prevents us from being vulnerable. I've had leaders in my life. It's like they lived in a turtle shell. It's like they made everything about the job or the goal or the destination at hand. At any time there was a chance for vulnerability, they went in that shell, and it's like, good luck getting in. And to be honest, their impact on me has been very minimal. Right? But I've also had a couple examples of leaders who've allowed me into their life, who have been open and honest with me, but the fact that they don't have it all figured out, that they need help just like I do, and I cannot tell you what kind of impact it has left on me. Right? And it's empowered me to do the same for other people. For example, just to stand up here and to be vulnerable, to not just say it, but to model it. Man, I've struggled with anxiety most of my life. Can I be vulnerable? Struggled with anxiety most of my life. Started in high school, didn't really make sense of it until I was an adult. I just knew, man, something is off with me. Like, how I feel in certain social situations is not normal. And I remember opening up for the first time and telling my wife, this is about 7 years ago, I never told her before. And I was bawling. And I was embarrassed. Because my wife, honestly, like, she's never experienced that. And I know if the statistics are true, which I think they are, there's a lot of people here that are struggling with that same thing. And you know what I mean when I say that, man, to explain that to somebody else that's never been through it, it's like speaking a foreign language. Right? But something happened that day when I chose to be vulnerable. I mean, number one, my wife and I became more intimately connected as I allowed her into the deepest parts of my life. And number two, man, a weight started to lift off of me as I realized this is not something I have to run from or hide from. And here's what happened. Ever since that time 7 years ago, I just started sharing this struggle with other people. One-on-one settings, bigger group settings. I get a lot of speaking opportunities with FCA. I just started sharing this. And I cannot tell you how many instances I've had over the years of somebody coming up to me after I've got done talking and saying, man, I'm struggling with that same thing. And I've never told anybody. And I need help. And I've been countless opportunities to serve somebody else with their struggle, with where they're at, because I've chosen to be vulnerable. A lot of times, younger kids, the most recent one about a month and a half ago, middle-aged guy. Depression, anxiety, family falling apart, never told anyone his whole life. Because I chose to open myself up and be vulnerable. That impact on other people multiplied. Right? Vulnerability does not come natural to us. But I would challenge you to start practicing it with those that are around you. Invite them into your life. Invite them into the deepest parts of your life. And watch your impact on them multiply. Right? So good leaders lead themselves. They embrace vulnerability. And lastly, they define their why. Everybody say define their why. Define their why. Over a century ago, a man named Clyde Beatty was famous in the circus for taming lions. All right? Anybody know what a lion tamer does? Steps into a ring. A lot of lion tamers up to that point had died in the ring, which, go figure, step into a ring with a lion, you're probably going to die. But Clyde lived to an old age, and he made famous a technique where he took a whip and a chair into the ring with him. Right? If you Google like lion tamer, you'll see somebody holding a whip and a chair. And a lot of people think that the whip is the most important weapon. I mean, if you're stepping into a ring with a lion, you probably want a whip, right? Not a chair. But the whip is actually a distraction. It's the chair that tames the lion. Right? Because here's what these lion tamers found. They found that when a lion is faced with 4 different legs of a chair, 4 different options, they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. A distracted lion can be tamed. Right? Man, I think this demonstrates an important lesson for us. A distracted life is an unproductive life. Right? If you do not identify where your intended destination is and continue to remind yourself of that on an ongoing basis, you will not gain traction in your life, and your impact on other people will be diminished. Right? Good leaders know how to define their why. They define their purpose for living so that they're able to focus around that one thing so that they don't get distracted by a bunch of less important things. Right? What is your why? What is your purpose for living? I realize a lot of you are 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids in here. It is never too early to start wrestling with these deeper questions in life. Right? I wish I would have wrestled with this when I was in your seat not too long ago. It would have saved me from a lot of distraction. Right? I believe where your passion and your gifting meets the needs of other people, and I think there's your why. Where your passion, your gifting meets the needs of other people, there you will find your why. I think too often people settle for a paycheck and a weekend. I see and talk to people often who, man, it's like they clock in and out of a job that they don't like, and they go home, they spend the rest of their time doing things for themselves. There's no sparkle in their eye. I'm like, that's not living. That's not living. Your life is not meant to be consumed on yourself. It's meant to be spent on other people. Right? Someone asked me this one time, and it really clicked for me. He said, man, if you could do anything in life, and money and a paycheck weren't an issue, what would you do? Think about that. What would you do? And I'm not talking about in terms of personal entertainment. Like if what comes to your mind is traveling the world and going on cruises every week, that's pretty shallow. That's a pretty empty life. I'm not talking about entertainment. I mean, what would you spend your time doing that combines your natural God-given talents and passions and how you're wired and meets the needs of somebody else? And I think if you can identify that, you're on your way to finding your why. Right? And then it's about making sure that your life is reflecting those things, prioritizing those things, saying no to the lesser things. I mean, for me, I mentioned different roles in my life earlier, right? I got to speak to the FCA group just before this. One of my passions in life is helping people process through how to follow Jesus, right? Like, if I had to stop doing that or somebody distracted me away from that, I feel like I would lose part of my why, right? I would lose the sparkle in my eye, right? I'm a husband and a father. I know a lot of guys my age that spend the weekends doing fantasy football and tailgating and video games, and I'm like, that's a waste of time. That takes me away from what's most important. You guys follow me? Define your why. Again, life is not meant to be consumed on self. It's meant to be poured out for other people. I think if you want to gain traction in your life so that I can influence other people, I need to identify my why and keep coming back to that on a regular basis so that I'm not distracted by a bunch of four-legged chairs. Right? Again, good leaders, what do they first do? Lead what? Lead themselves. Secondly, embrace vulnerability. And thirdly, define your why. Define your why. I think if you do that, then you're well on your way to influencing other people in a healthy way. Right? Guys, thanks so much for having me. Love to connect, man. If you're on your way to class, come up and introduce yourself. I'd love to exchange information to help you along in your journey. But thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And when the bell rings, then we'll head back to class. Okay? Thank you.
Let's go.